In the realm of political fantasy, few figures embody the classical ideal of noble kingship as perfectly as Aragorn II, son of Arathorn, and Vinyatar, the Renewer, captain of the host of the West, chieftain and high king of the Dunedain, king of Gondor and Arnor, lord of the Westlands, king of the Númenóreans, and lord of the White Trees, known as King Elisar Telcontar. When examined through the lens of classical political philosophy, Aragorn's reign emerges as perhaps the closest embodiment of the ideal monarch, a rule defined by his unwavering devotion to the common good, his resistance to the temptations of power, and his deliberate cultivation of virtue through prolonged trials and tribulations. In this essay, I will argue that Aragorn was a good king, by examining how he embodies virtuous kingship. First, I will define kingship, establishing the theoretical foundation for evaluating legitimate sovereignty. Second, I will analyze how Aragorn consistently meets this definition through his patient restraint in claiming the throne and his lifelong service to his people. Finally, I will demonstrate how his governance and careful selection of advisors fulfills Aristotle's criteria for stable rule, ultimately concluding that Aragorn is a good king. What is a king? From antiquity through to the Enlightenment, a consistent theoretical thread defines kingship, the active and virtuous pursuit of the common good. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle establishes this distinction most clearly in his book called Politics, where he defines the fundamental difference between a king and a tyrant by their motivation. A king governs for the benefit of the people, acting as their protector, defending the rich against unjust treatment and the weak against insults and oppression. A tyrant, by contrast, rules solely for private ends, seeking pleasure and riches, and surrounding himself with mercenaries rather than loyal citizens who believe in his rule. The ancient historian Polybius refined this idea in his book called Histories, arguing that stable rule depends not on coercion, but on reason, shared trust, and respect, conditions achieved when a sovereign aligns his actions with the values of his people and distributes justice fairly. Kingship is rooted in reason and consent. Tyranny is rooted in force and desire. This Aristotelian conception was adopted by medieval scholars, most prominently in St. Thomas Aquinas, who imagines the king as a shepherd. A king's power is only justified when it is directed towards the good of his flock. Without this purpose, the king lacks authority and is a tyrant. Under this classical framework, mere generosity or likability is insufficient. Legitimate sovereignty requires the dedicated subordination of personal power and desire to the good of the realm. From this, we can see the standard for righteous kingship. Rule is legitimate only when it actively and virtuously pursues the common good. The ideal king is a true sovereign who bases his leadership on reason rather than force, who embodies justice and nobility, and whose every action serves the realm rather than himself. To understand why Aragorn exemplifies this ideal, we must first understand the concept of duty that guides his actions. Duty is a moral or legal obligation, a task or action that someone is required to perform. Although legal duties are codified and easily recognizable, unwritten moral duties are equally binding for those who want to live virtuously. In his philosophical book De Officiis, the Roman statesman Cicero argues that when we face moral choices, we must consider two main factors: what is morally right and what is personally expedient. The hardest choices come when these two factors are in conflict. Cicero identifies a fundamental problem in moral philosophy. If someone believes that the ultimate goal in life has nothing to do with being a good person, and they judge everything only by what advances their own interests, then it would be logically inconsistent to value friendship, generosity, justice, or bravery. If the supreme good in life is to maximize your own pleasure, then how could you possibly believe in self-control? How could you possibly be brave and fight in battle if it was the ultimate good to avoid pain? According to Cicero, if the supreme good is your own pleasure or advantage, then your morals have an expiration date. Your loyalty, your honesty, and your courage last only as long as they are useful to you. The moment it becomes painful or costly to be a good friend or to tell the truth or to stand up for what's right, your entire worldview gives you permission to abandon your principles. Cicero argues that the only good way to build a life and a society where people can rely on each other is to believe that being a good person is the goal itself, Not because it's easy, not because it feels good, but because it's right. This understanding of duty, duty pursued for its own sake, forms the philosophical foundation for understanding Aragorn's actions throughout his life. To understand why Aragorn is such a good king, we must first understand why he didn't become king earlier. This question reveals both Aragorn's political wisdom and his moral character. When the line of kings in Gondor faced failure 1,000 years before the War of the Ring, one of Aragorn's ancestors, King Arvedui of Arthedain, made a claim to the throne based on his descent from Elendil. The nobles of Gondor rejected him. Even though he had the right bloodline, he lacked the practical means to help Gondor. He had no armies, no treasury, no established power base. Gondor instead turned to Eärnil II and Eärnur, powerful generals with royal blood and the military strength to defend the realm. Eventually, after Eärnur's mysterious disappearance, Gondor turned to the stewards, but Arvedui and his line did not press their claims. His descendants never did, because they understood a political truth that would echo through the centuries. Gondor feared civil war as much as it feared its external enemies. This fear was rooted in the kin-strife, an earlier period of internal conflict that haunted the kingdom's memory. Forcing a claim would tear the kingdom apart, and tearing the kingdom apart to prop up the claim of a king for no other reason than dynastic ambition would be against the interests of the people. Aragorn knew this history well. He also knew that war was coming, that Sauron's darkness would soon descend upon Gondor with overwhelming force. He understood that during the war, the legitimacy of his claim would matter far less than whether it could be presented without destroying the kingdom's unity in the face of an existential threat. When the steward Lord Denethor II refused his bloodline with contempt, Aragorn did not seize upon the insult as a justification for his claim. Instead, he recognized it as evidence of political reality. This is where Aragorn's moral character becomes visible. Rather than claim the throne at the moment when he could finally force it, after his military victories at Pelennor Fields had proven his worth, he deliberately waited. Even when his leadership had turned the tide of war, and Imrahil declared that he would follow Aragorn as king regardless of his formal claim, Aragorn refused to press it. Quote, "Behold the sun setting in a great fire. It is a sign of the end and fall of many things, and a change in the tides of the world. But this city and realm has rested in the charge of stewards for many long years, and I fear that if I enter it unbidden, then doubt and debate may arise, which should not be while this war is fought. I will not enter in, nor make any claim, until it be seen whether we or Mordor shall prevail. Men shall pitch my tents upon the field, and here I will await the welcome of the lord of the city." But Eomer said, "Already you have raised the banner of the kings and displayed the tokens of Elendil's house. Will you suffer these to be challenged?" "No," said Aragorn, "but I deem the time unripe, and I have no mind for strife, except with our enemy and his servants." Aragorn's words reveal the depth of his restraint. He will not enter the city unbidden, will not make any claim until the war's outcome is decided. He explicitly prioritizes the unity needed to face Mordor over his own legitimate right to the throne. When Eomer questions whether he will allow his tokens to be challenged, Aragorn's response is telling. It's not the right time to make his claim, and he only wants to cause the enemy trouble. His focus remains entirely on the external threat, not on securing his own position. Although Aragorn does end up entering the city, in secret and in disguise, he only does so at Gandalf's urgent request, and only because he possesses the healing powers necessary to save lives, including the life of his political competitor, Faramir, last of the stewards. Quote, "And they saw as he stepped into the light of the lantern by the door that it was Aragorn, wrapped in the grey cloak of Lorien above his mail, and bearing no other token than the green stone of Galadriel. I have come because Gandalf begs me to do so, but for the present I am but the captain of the Dunedain of Arnor, and the Lord of Dol Amroth shall rule the city until Faramir awakes. But it is my counsel that Gandalf should rule us all in the days that follow, and in our dealings with the enemy." And they agreed upon that. Then Gandalf said, "Let us not stay at the door, for the time is urgent. Let us enter, for it is only the coming of Aragorn that any hope remains for the sick that lie in the house." Thus spake Eoreth, wise woman of Gondor, "The hands of the king are the hands of a healer, and so shall the rightful king be known." Even as Aragorn enters the city to heal Faramir, Aragorn maintains his posture of deference. He bears basically no symbols, no crown, no royal regalia, nothing to press his claim. He comes, he says, only because Gandalf begged him to, and he immediately declares himself merely the captain of the Dunedain of Arnor, proposing that Dol Amroth rule the city until Faramir awakes, and that Gandalf should guide them all in dealing with Sauron. This is a demonstration of extraordinary restraint. He sets aside his political interests to save the life of Faramir, the man who, as the last of the stewards, represents the greatest obstacle to his claim. A lesser man might have let Faramir die, removing a rival. Aragorn heals him instead. These actions reveal Aragorn's virtue. He pursues what is right rather than what is expedient for himself. He places the survival of Gondor above his legitimate claim. He refuses to allow his personal ascent to be a distraction during the realm's darkest hour. Only after the victory at the Black Gate, only when Sauron was utterly defeated and the kingdom faced no external threat that his claim might destabilize, and once he had the support of Imrahil of Dol Amroth and the support of Faramir, the last of the stewards, did Aragorn finally accept the crown. Aragorn put his people and his kingdom first. That is the mark of a true king. A lesser man, even a good one, might have claimed the throne immediately. Aragorn's willingness to remain a ranger, to die in obscurity if the war had gone differently, to subordinate his dynastic ambitions for the good of the realm he sought to govern. This is the realization of duty pursued for its own sake. He proves through his actions that he rules for the people, not for himself. Aragorn's decades as a ranger reveal another dimension of this selflessness and commitment to duty. While the stewards of Gondor commanded armies and ruled lands, Aragorn and his kin maintained a thankless watch in the north, protected the Shire, Bree, and the scattered free peoples from creatures of darkness that would have overrun those lands. This was not glorious work, nor was it recognized, but Aragorn undertook it as his duty and carried this burden without fanfare, or even asking for so much as a thank you. The cost of this duty was real and personal. His own family paid the price of this service in blood. His grandfather, Eredor, was killed by hill trolls, and his father, Arathorn, died fighting orcs when Aragorn was only 2 years old. Quote, "And it happened that when Arathorn and Gilrain had been married only 1 year, Eredor was taken by hill trolls in the cold fells north of Rivendell, and was slain, and Arathorn became chieftain of the Dunedain. Aragorn was only 2 years old when Arathorn went riding against the orcs with the sons of Elrond, and he was slain by an orc arrow that pierced his eye. And so he proved indeed short-lived for one of his race, being but 60 years old when he fell. His father died fighting orcs near Rivendell, unknown and unsung by the masses. The passage emphasizes the tragedy. Arathorn was short-lived for one of his race, being just 60 years old, suggesting that this duty cut short even the extended lifespans of the Dunedain. Yet Aragorn continues this work, understanding that true duty requires sacrifice without recognition or reward. He grew up knowing that his father's death was the price of protecting people who would never know his name. Moreover, Aragorn faced personal trials that would have broken most men. Many ominous futures were foretold to him in his youth at Rivendell. When he fell in love with Arwen, Elrond laid out the impossible conditions that would govern Aragorn's entire life. Quote, "Aragorn, Arathorn's son, Lord of the Dunedain, listen to me. A great doom awaits you, either to rise above the height of all your fathers since the days of Elendil, or to fall into the darkness with all that is left of your kin. Many years of trial lie before you. You shall neither have wife nor bind any woman to you in troth, until your time comes and you are found worthy of it. As for Arwen the Fair, Lady of Imladris and of Lorien, even star of her people, she is of a lineage greater than yours, and she has lived in the world already so long that to her you are but as a yearling shoot beside a young birch of many summers. She is too far above you, and so, I think, it may well seem to her. But even if it were not so, and her heart turned towards you, I should still be grieved because of the doom that is laid on us. That so long as I abide here, she shall live with the youth of the Eldar, and when I depart, she shall go with me, if she so chooses. You do not know yet what you desire of me. The years will bring what they will. We will speak no more of this until many have passed. The days darken, and much evil is to come." These passages reveal the weight placed on Aragorn's shoulders. Aragorn must rise above the height of his ancestors or fall into the darkness. He must endure years of thankless struggle, and his true love is too noble for him to attain as anything less than king of both Gondor and Arnor, a throne that hasn't existed for over 1,000 years. For most men, this would be a crushing, impossible burden, but for Aragorn, it becomes his purpose. Despite these burdens, the loss of his father, the prophecy of either greatness or utter failure, the denial of love until he proved himself worthy of an impossible standard, Aragorn devoted himself to his duty. And what did that duty look like? Nearly 30 years of grinding through lonely, dangerous work. Quote, "For nearly 30 years, Aragorn labored in the cause against Sauron, and he became a friend of Gandalf the Wise, from whom he gained much wisdom. With him he made many perilous journeys, but as the years wore on, he went more often alone. His ways were hard and long, and it became somewhat grim to look upon, unless he chanced to smile. And yet he seemed to men worthy of honor, as a king that is in exile, when he did not hide his true shape. For he went in many guises, and won renown under many names. He rode into the host of the Rohirrim, and fought for Gondor by land and by sea. And then in the hour of victory he passed out of the knowledge of men of the west, and went alone far into the east and deep into the south, exploring the hearts of men both evil and good, and uncovering the plots and devices of the servants of Sauron." This passage captures the toll that duty took on Aragorn. Nearly 3 decades of labor against Sauron, perilous journeys, increasingly alone as the years passed. His ways were hard and long, and he became somewhat grim to look upon. We see that duty shaped even his physical appearance, marking him with the weight of his trials. He fought and traveled in disguise, never claiming credit as Aragorn, never leveraging his deeds for political gain. He fought with both Rohan and Gondor, and then deliberately avoided the spoils of victory, fading away into obscurity in the east and south, exploring the hearts of men and uncovering Sauron's plots. He chose the harder, lonelier path because it was necessary. His service in the armies of King Thengel of Rohan and Steward Ecthalion II of Gondor, under the false name of Thorongil, benefited the kingdoms of mankind while actively pushing away recognition, because revealing his identity might have caused the political strife that he wanted to prevent. He needed to participate in these campaigns to keep the darkness of Sauron at bay, but he did so anonymously, achieving military victories for kingdoms that didn't even know who he was. He gained wisdom and experience through these journeys, foiled Sauron's plots, and worked to become worthy of the responsibility of the crown. Even his eventual decision to press his claim was not made solely for personal reasons. It was in significant part to fulfill Elrond's condition, to make possible the union between elves and men, and to restore mankind to their former nobility. When Aragorn returned to Rivendell after years of service, Elrond acknowledged this larger purpose. Quote, "My son, years come when hope will fade, and beyond them little is clear to me, and now a shadow lies between us. Maybe it has been appointed so, that by my loss the kingship of men may be restored. Therefore, though I love you, I say to you, Arwen Undomil shall not diminish her life's grace for less cause. She shall not be the bride of any man less than the king of both Gondor and Arnor." Elrond's words reveal the cosmic significance of Aragorn's quest. Aragorn's ascent to king serves a higher purpose, to restore the race of men to nobility and greatness, to heal the breach between elves and men, and to fulfill ancient promises long ago broken. The marriage itself, which required Aragorn to become king, was an act of service to something larger than himself. This is kingship as the ancients conceived of it. Aragorn's life embodies the classical understanding that virtue must be pursued for its own sake, that duty cannot depend on personal benefit or recognition, and that true nobility lies in serving the common good, even when that service demands profound personal sacrifice. Aragorn displays virtuous rule in both the time before his rule and during his rule. Aragorn avoids the corrupting influence of power. He checks all the boxes set by the classics. Book 5 of Aristotle's Politics systematically outlines the conditions that lead to the downfall of kingdoms. States collapse when they have envy and jealousy, insolence and contempt, fear of being stamped out, excessive predominance, disproportionate increase in some part of the state, election intrigues, carelessness and neglect about trifles, and dissimilarity of elements. Aragorn's reign demonstrates a mastery of these dangers. A Upon taking the throne, Aragorn faced immediate challenges that would have tempted a lesser ruler towards tyranny. Denethor II had proven himself unfit. His paranoia, despair, and ultimate death had nearly destroyed the kingdom. The stewards, for centuries, had held the throne that belonged to the House of Isildur. Reclaiming royal authority from a hereditary line of regents could have easily sparked a civil war, and indeed Aragorn was incredibly worried about that. Aragorn chose not to execute Denethor or systematically purge the steward's supporters. Instead, he saved Faramir's life and elevated him, the noble steward's last son, to a position of honor and counsel. He praised the courage of both Boromir and Faramir, despite Boromir's corruption by the ring. By honoring the House of the Stewards rather than humiliating them, Aragorn prevented the factional resentment that so often follows dynastic change. He addressed his kingdom's problems quietly without seeking praise or vengeance. Unlike King Jaehaerys Targaryen, Aragorn's conciliation was genuine. Aragorn's selection of advisors further reflects Aristotle's criteria for virtue in governance. Aragorn selects good advisors according to Aristotle's criteria. They're loyal to the Constitution, they're competent, and they have a sense of justice appropriate to the realm. He appoints the Lord of Dol Amroth to rule Gondor in Faramir's absence, and he names Gandalf as his chief counselor and the leader of mankind in the final days against Sauron. Legolas and Gimli, representing the free peoples beyond men, were his companions and inner circle. This reflected Aragorn's understanding that his reign would be defined by cooperation among different races and peoples, by shared purpose transcending ancient rivalries, and this understanding continued well into his reign as king. Aragorn continued to remain humble about his role. His reign lasted for 120 peaceful years, and was marked by harmony and prosperity, by renewal of cooperation between races and kingdoms. When he reached the end of his days, a privilege of the old Númenórean kings to choose their time of death, he died peacefully, without clinging to power or fearing mortality. This is the opposite of tyranny. It is the voluntary submission of even kingship itself to something higher than the individual. If Aragorn's virtue is revealed in his difficult choices before and during his reign, it reaches its fullest expression in the end, his final decision to lay down his life while he still possesses the strength and clarity to do so. After 120 years of marriage to Arwen, feeling the approach of old age, Aragorn makes a choice to give up his power as king to his son Eldarion, and passes away. When Arwen challenges his intention to die, asking if he would abandon his people before his time, Aragorn says, "Not before my time. For if I will not go now, then I must soon go perforce, and Eldarion our son is a man full ripe for kingship." Aragorn is saying that to wait would be to risk becoming a burden to his kingdom, a king withering in his seat, losing the faculties that leadership demands. His choice to die while he can still die with dignity is an act of kingship. It is a refusal to impose the weakness of his ending upon those who would depend on him. But the passage reveals something even deeper in Aragorn's farewell to Arwen. Quote, "Lady Undamil, the hour is indeed hard, yet it was made even in that day when we met, under the white birches in the garden of Elrond, where none now walk, and on the hill of Caran Amroth, when we forsook both the shadow and the twilight. This doom we accepted. Take counsel with yourself, beloved, and ask whether you would indeed have me wait until I wither and fall from my high seat unmanned and witless. Nay, lady, I am the last of the Númenóreans, and the latest king of the elder days, and to me has been given not only a span thrice that of men of Middle-earth, but also the grace to go at my will, and give back the gift. Now, therefore, I will sleep. I speak no comfort to you, for there is no comfort for such pain within the circles of the world. The uttermost choice is before you, to repent and go to the havens, and bear away into the west the memory of our days together, that shall there be evergreen, but never more than a memory, or else abide the doom of men. But let us not be overthrown at the final test, who of old renounced the shadow and the ring. In sorrow we must go, but not in despair. Behold, we are not bound forever to the circles of the world, and beyond them is more than a memory. Farewell." Aragorn chooses to surrender his life because his duty to his people and his dignity as a king demand it. The pain of this choice, both his own approaching death and the grief he inflicts upon Arwen, is the price of virtue. It is the payment finally coming due for the choice that he and Arwen made together in Lothlorien, when they renounced both the shadow and the twilight and accepted the doom of man, accepted mortality. Aragorn had already accepted that his life would be finite, that he would age, that he would die. Now, at the end, he chooses to meet that doom with the same virtue he's shown throughout his life. Aragorn's death is the culmination of a lifetime of choosing what's right despite its difficulty, and in that choice he demonstrates a truth at the heart of virtue, that true greatness lies in meeting pain and sacrifice with wisdom, dignity, and an unwavering commitment to doing the right thing. His final act is his most kingly act, because he surrenders everything for his people. Apart from the numerous times that Aragorn puts his literal life on the line for his people, Aragorn's virtue becomes most apparent in his moments of vulnerability, as demonstrated in his interaction with Arwen in Lothlorien. In the tales of Aragorn and Arwen, the reader is told that when Aragorn was 94 years old, he was very tired and wanted to return to Rivendell to rest between his adventures. Quote, "It came to pass that when Aragorn was 49 years of age, he returned from perils on the dark confines of Mordor, where Sauron now dwelt again, and was busy with evil. He was weary, and he wished to go back to Rivendell, and rest there for a while ere he journeyed into the far countries. And on his way he came to the borders of Lorien, and was admitted to the hidden land by the Lady Galadriel. During his time in Lothlorien, Aragorn speaks with Arwen, and reveals that he's exhausted, and sees no hope for the future. Quote, "And Arwen said, 'Dark is the shadow, and yet my heart rejoices, for you, Estelle, shall be among the great whose valor will destroy it.' But Aragorn answered, 'Alas, I cannot foresee it, and how it may come to pass is hidden from me. Yet with your hope I will hope, and the shadow I utterly reject. But neither, lady, is the twilight for me, for I am mortal, and if you will cleave to me, even star, then the twilight you must also renounce.'" This passage illustrates the weight that Aragorn carries throughout his journey. When Arwen offers him hope rooted in what seems like prophetic certainty that his valor will matter, that he will be great, Aragorn isn't relieved by her reassurance. Instead, he begins with alas, conveying difficulty and sadness. He has no certainty about his destiny. She sees greatness and virtue in Aragorn, a true hero, and he doesn't see himself that way. When Aragorn looks at himself, he can't see what she sees, and he doesn't pretend otherwise. What makes Aragorn heroic is not that he overcomes doubt through confidence, but that he chooses to hope despite his doubt. "Yet with your hope I will hope," he tells her. Not, "I have hope," but "I will hope." This is hope as an active choice rather than an emotion that grips him. It is hope as an act of will, something that he must continually choose to maintain in the face of uncertainty. This distinction matters enormously. A hero who acts because he is certain of victory is just following a predetermined path. A hero who acts because the right thing must be done, even when success is hidden from him, is exercising genuine moral agency. His struggle is what makes him heroic. But Tolkien adds another dimension to Aragorn's struggle through his declaration about Arwen, pointing out the cost of her love and making her fully conscious of what she loses by choosing him. Immortality, the peace of the Valinor, the ageless existence of her people. In doing so, Aragorn reveals a man burdened not only by the doubt about his own abilities, but by awareness of the consequences his choices impose on other people. This is moral seriousness. He can't ask Arwen to bind herself to him without ensuring that she understands the serious price she'll be paying. This passage encapsulates why Aragorn's eventual ascent as king carries so much weight, and it reveals a conception of virtue that echoes classical Stoic thought. Cicero wrote extensively about the nature of virtue, arguing that true moral worth lies not in the absence of struggle, but in the conscious choice to do what is right despite their internal resistance. One manifestation of virtue is overcoming your fears, doubts, and desires, the will asserting itself against the natural inclinations of the self. Aragorn becomes king by making the difficult choice to do the right thing, even in uncertainty, by hoping without hope, by leading without the comfort of foreknowledge. The difficulty of these choices is not an obstacle to his virtue. It is the substance of his virtue. When Aragorn tells Arwen, "Yet with your hope I will hope," he's not expressing an emotion that flows naturally from him. He's describing an act of willpower, a conscious decision to choose hope despite his inability to foresee success. And when he names the cost of his love, he does so despite the pain, because it's the honorable thing to do. His choices are virtuous because they are difficult for him. This is not the portrait of a perfect, unattainable fictional character. Aragorn is a man of genuine virtue, flawed, afraid, burdened by doubt, and all the more admirable for pressing forward anyway. He is a hero because he struggles, and chooses the right thing regardless. Theoden and Aragorn charging down the ramparts of Helm's Deep is a moral call to action, articulated by Tolkien by reaching back through 2,000 years of Western moral conscience. This call to action is made clear with the Lament of the Rohirrim, the poem that Theoden recites when he dons his armor in the film. In the books, this poem is instead delivered by Aragorn when the party arrives at Edoras and sees the ancient burial mounds of the Rohirrim. The poem starts with, "Where now the horse and the rider? Where's the horn that was blowing?" The poem is an invocation of the ubi sunt trope, Latin for "where are they?" Ubi sunt is a timeless rhetorical device stretching from the Vulgate Bible, "Where are the princes of the nations?" through the poems of Beowulf, continuing through the Exeter Book of Old English Poetry, which The Wanderer is part of, into Renaissance England with Shakespeare's Hamlet, "Alas, poor Yorick, where be your gibes now?" Ubi sunt is a meditation on the inevitable passing of glory, a lament for heroes and songs lost to time. The Old English poem, The Wanderer, says, "Where is the horse? Where is the man? Where is the sharer of wealth? Where are the seats at the feast? Where are the revels in the hall? Alas, bright cup! Alas, shining warrior! Alas for the splendor of the prince! How that time has passed, dark under the cover of night, as though it had never been." Tolkien invokes this ancient weary question to issue a defiant answer. Where is the horse and the rider? Tolkien's answer is here. Aragorn and Theoden are the horse and the rider. The horn that was blowing is in their hands and on their lips. When they smash down the ramparts at dawn, it's a sacrifice to draw the enemy's wrath onto themselves and away from their people to buy them more time to escape. They have no certainty that Gandalf will return, no guarantee of victory, no hope at all. They ride out because it's the right thing to do. In this moment, Tolkien weaves Christian sacrifice, stoic resolve, and the Western warrior spirit into a lesson that we are tomorrow's heroes of old. That in that brief shining moment, we might choose courage to protect what needs protecting, and to meet the shadow of evil with a defiance that, win or lose, becomes its own kind of victory. This is why The Lord of the Rings resonates so deeply in the Western psyche. It's not a simple story of good defeating evil. The Lord of the Rings is a moral call to action on what to do in the face of defeat. It gathers the threads of our traditions, the biblical, the classical, and the medieval, and braids them together into a beautiful strand, that in the face of reckless hate, our duty is to saddle our horses, sound the horn, and ride out to meet it. Our triumph lies in the choice to ride. In conclusion, the consequences of Aragorn's reign vindicate the classical political theory that he embodied. The reunited kingdom of Gondor and Arnor flourished. He re-established rule over lands that Gondor had lost 1,000 years ago. His marriage to Arwen became a symbol of unity in Middle-earth. Their union produced a son, Eldarion, who succeeded him and presumably continued the line with the same virtue. The happiness and stability that characterized his 120-year reign stand in stark contrast to the centuries of decline and strife that preceded it. It is the direct result of a king who understood that legitimacy flows from virtue, not from force, from the common good, and from reason. Aragorn is a good king because he embodies the classical definition of kingship. He does not rule by divine right or inherited privilege alone, but by the active, virtuous pursuit of his people's welfare. He resists the temptations that corrupt power. Pride, resentment, gratification. He waits for the proper moments to claim his throne, understanding that patience itself can be an act of service to the realm. He chooses his advisors for their loyalty, competence, and virtue. He treats even those he displaces with honor. Most importantly, Aragorn understands that the king is not so different from the steward. After all, kingship is a form of stewardship. His authority exists for the protection of his people. The weak from oppression, the realm from chaos, the free peoples from the encroachments of evil. Aragorn leads his people because his people need his leadership, and he has devoted his life to being worthy of providing it. In the age of political cynicism, Aragorn's kingship stands as a monument to what rule and service of the common good might look like. He provides the measuring stick, by which all kings might be measured. "Estelle, Estelle," she cried, and with that, even as he took her hand and kissed it, he fell into a sleep. Then a great beauty was revealed in him, so that all who after came there looked on him in wonder. For these saw that the grace of his youth and the valor of his manhood and the wisdom and majesty of his age were blended together. And long there he lay, an image of the splendor of the kings of men, in glory undimmed before the breaking of the world.